Hey there, boys and girls. Welcome to this year-end capping episode. This year. We gotta get this year out of the way. This year fucking blows.
This year's got to go.
So this is our end of the year wrap-up. Normally we do this has been the 4th annual Hollow Weekly Awards, but no one has claimed their prize yet of whatever coupons we have lying around in our mail basket. I don't know why.
It's baffling.
Baffling. I don't know why. I mean, I'm sure there's 75 cents off toilet paper or something like that.
Well, that's valuable these days.
That's solid gold. So we got our top 5 of the year, and then we are going to guess what we're going to take a shot in the dark of what our favorite films will be in 2021, assuming by then theaters are back up. They're showing these movies. Well, we at least know the Warner Brother movies. We'll be able to see day one at home. So
yes.
As for Paramount and all the other ones, the indie guys.
So let's just talk about this for a minute, because this was a really, really strange year.
Yeah.
I feel like the biggest horror story, not non-political, not like Stephen King causing whatever, but like horror breakout story was that the Host, the Shudder streaming phenomenon. That felt like the biggest.
Yeah, that definitely took over.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it totally fit the bill for 2022, since once everyone was on lockdown, they're like, we're going to get together and talk on Skype or Zoom and all this other shit. And you ended up only really doing it once. And
right. Well, it was one of those movies, though, that comes around where there's a lot of buzz on the edges for people who don't watch horror movies that much, or watch them but don't they don't consider themselves genre fans, where that movie was scaring the shit out of them. I was hearing a lot of buzz about how scary it was, which you don't get for a lot of movies.
No, I even saw a bunch of people on TikTok talking about it. It would show them watching the movie or starring the movie, and then it would cut to them at the end of the film. They're crying and shit like that. So it had a lot of buzz. It hit the right moment.
Yep. That was a big thing. I think the biggest mainstream movie that managed to make it out in the year was Invisible Man, probably, right?
Yeah. Because everything else got pushed, like Fast and Furious. I mean, this is on horror movies, but Wonder Woman at the time, it's kind of crazy now that's going to come out in 3 days, in our lives. That's still blowing my mind. I think it's so awesome. Yeah, I think the last one's got to be Invisible Man.
I think that was the biggest, and then everything else kind of got pushed out. Quiet Place 2 got torpedoed along with everything else. So the fact that was Invisible Man was the last movie I think I saw in the theater at all, horror or not. I think that was my final theater experience.
I think it was. We saw Birds of Prey twice in the theater, but I don't remember if we saw Birds of Prey and then Invisible Man and then Birds of Prey again. I think it was Birds of Prey twice, and then we ended it with Invisible Man.
Interesting. So that was a big story, and then also it just felt to me like a lot of the streaming thing. People were rediscovering all the streaming channels because they were home all the time. So I saw a lot of horror fans started talking about Tubi. A lot of
stuff about Tubi.
Right, a lot of horror fans finally discovered Shudder if they hadn't already. They discovered Amazon Prime's got a decent catalog. It was just funny watching everyone navigate the new, ecosystem,
to find something good to watch.
But I don't feel like if you had told me in advance that things would play out like this, if I had thought people had 9 months of no theaters and they had to sort of self-serve in a way, streaming wise, I would have thought some old horror things would have re-risen. That Last Dance Michael Jordan documentary kind of made everyone nostalgic for Jordan. Everyone was sharing it like in real time. Like, I would have thought like when summer came around, there would have been like a Jaws. Like everyone's got to like watch party the shit out of this across the country. Like I expected something to have like a resurrection, and I don't feel like that really happened. Maybe it was just because everyone was so bummed out.
Yeah, I mean it was kind of bum central, man. Like everything was like kind of sucked. Like as we were talking and like putting our list together, like I think I actually watched less horror this year, and I wonder if it's because like everything just kind of blew. It's like can't go to the theater. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that came out, but I wonder if if it was because of COVID or like we didn't even put up like a lot of Halloween decorations. I did some stuff inside, and I just didn't put a lot of shit outside because I was like, well, what's the point? Put it out there. The gardeners are gonna come. I have to pick it up, put that shit back out there. But when Christmas came, we threw that tree up quick.
That's true.
I was like, I need some holly jolly spirits.
That's true.
Though, to be fair, we do have the haunted house Lego thing we built, so I guess that's very that's in the horror.
Yeah, you and Alex worked on that for how long?
We're not done. we got like 6 more bags we gotta do, and then I think she's in the other room for Christmas. I got her the Disney Lego castle, and I think it's like 800 pieces more than that one. So
oh man,
so we're gonna have hands full of Legos.
I feel like you're like grinding in one of those video games with the universe.
Like WoW, like you're leveling up and
yeah, exactly. Except for you're doing it in Legos in real time.
Yeah, it's rough.
I watched as much horror as I always do. I think first of all for you, I know horror. A lot of like there's a lot of fun to it for you. So like seeing the marquee at the theater and like getting to walk and watch a crowd react, like a lot of that's a big deal to you, like experience wise. And there was no Halloween haunts. We couldn't visit anything to like go to Universal or Reign of Terror.
We did get the LA Haunted Hayride Another Tribe because they had a very cool isolated thing, and
we did.
And it wasn't bad. All these years, people who listen to the show regularly know that I talk about that 1 year being great and then it sucks ass, and now it's like, hey, I mean, you pulled through when we needed you.
That's true. They were pinch hitting and they did a great job with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's it would be interesting to find out from the listeners how they've taken it. Did 2020 more horror, less horror, or the same? Right? Like because I could see it go either way. Because for some people horror is therapeutic, so you might watch it more if it's a really edgy year. For some people, too much darkness just becomes overwhelming. So like, it would be interesting to find out how it went for the viewers. I know that for my top 5 list, I've got a really unusual list. Unusual, not just because some of them are unusual films, but just unusual for me.
Right.
So I'm wondering if the weirdness of the year even affected the kind of thing I would enjoy, because I have a movie on this list that I don't think if it had happened in any other year would have made my top 20, let alone my top 5. But for some reason, I love this movie. I can't explain it except everything about it. Like it doesn't make sense. It should be the kind of movie where I should be like, Matt on, but I don't know. I love this movie.
You know what I did watch a lot of?
What's that?
Disney Channel original movies on Disney Plus.
Oh, right. That's right. And Disney Plus gave us Mandalorian, too.
Well, it gave us Mandalorian, but growing up, so, like, they put all the movies from the Disney Channel, like, the Disney Channel original films, like, the really, they're, like, low-budget, kind of cheesy. I didn't grow up with Disney Channel, so Alex was like, you gotta watch all these. So we watched Smart House, which had the nanny in it. Like, she plays the nanny, or no, the house. It's like a smart house before, like, Alexas were a thing. Like, and then, Xenon, Girl of the 21st Century. I think I watched more Disney Channel originals than I did horror movies this year.
I don't know any of these.
Yeah. So, but to be clear to listeners, Xenon did not come out this year, and I couldn't put it on the list if I wanted to. So, it's the furthest thing from a horror movie.
Yeah, but we actually, we should talk just for a second about, because I think, it's not horror, but the biggest, along the topic of the streaming thing, kind of the big breakout phenomenons, I think Mandalorian, nothing's bigger than that, right? Is that the biggest of the year?
Well, for me, yeah, or for a lot of people, yeah. I mean, I still haven't finished it. I have 3 more episodes left. The episode Robert Rodriguez directed, and then the last 2. I've had the ending spoiled, but luckily I don't care about spoilers too. You know what though? It's not the spoilers that bug me. Like I don't care about it because like I get into movies like real hardcore. Like when I watch them, like I believe every minute of it. Like I can get into the world and like fucking dig it. It's like the need, and I'll say this: I'm guilty of this too. There's a thing in like this nerdy fandom thing about being the first one to say you saw it.
Right.
Like when a game trailer comes out, you want to be the first one of your friends to be like, look at this game trailer. Like there's like something like it's
sure.
I don't know how it's rewarding or like what it's triggering off in the brain that makes you think that's a great thing. But like when the season finale came out, like it was still like Thursday night, like it was like midnight. And it was like trending, and people were talking about it on Twitter. And I'm like, but like they weren't talking about like of course they were excited, but there was that you could feel that nerdiness of like they get some kind of like bragging points of like being the first one. And I'm just I guess what I'm saying is I'm curious what that is. Being that I'm guilty of it myself, I talk about it like it sickens me that I used to be like that. But I'm curious of what that is. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, totally. I mean, a lot of that stuff is probably just training for evolution, right? Like if you incentivize a pack of creatures to be really quick on the alert when you're standing around the water hole and like something creeps around from back and tries to kill you, if you're all wired to be like, "Ooh, check it out," like that, that's probably an advantage, right? So that probably sits
Very
there
true.
as like, "Ooh, guess what I heard is probably."
Next time I get annoyed because it's not even the spoiler. Like again, I don't care about the story part. It's just next time I see it, I'll go, "They're survivors. I get it."
Right. Or it's like, proving that you have a sharp perception, like you caught it right away, like you were on it, like you're a good. All of that is just.
Well, there's nothing really sharp about it. I mean, they just waited some credits.
Well, sure. Yeah. Good point. That's a very good point. Anyway, it became a huge phenomenon, and it's really interesting to me because this is old news for everybody at this point because Mandalorian's old news, but like we don't get to talk about non-horror very often. So, what's intriguing to me about this is I wouldn't have pegged it to be a phenomenon. It feels too well done, a little too minimal, a little too spare. It doesn't feel big enough to be the hit that it became, right? Like it's really interesting that it's so huge.
I have Facebook friends that are on opposite ends of the ending, and I'll talk to you about it when we're done recording because it's like part of it's like it's kind of eye rolling, and you're like, come on, man, like come on, you know what I'm saying? But then I saw like another friend who praising it, and I was like, there we go.
Yeah, but regardless of the ending, just the season, everything I've seen, from even from the beginning season up to now, is just so well done. A little more violent than I would have thought Disney would get away with, and a little more harsh.
Yeah.
Right. The only big hit that show took for me was I just can't buy the villain at all. I can't buy Moff Gideon as a villain. I can't find him interesting. There was a moment when I was watching one episode where this just underling comes in with some news. This is like a famous scene. Like picture like those underlings with the round stupid hats, and they run in and they tell Darth Vader like the rebels are approaching or whatever.
Right.
And you can see how that would play out in your mind, right? So like the underling comes in, and then Moff Gideon goes, "Sir," and Moff Gideon turns around with the most ridiculous, like slow turn, evil, furrowed brow, like comical bad guy, like move. It was just so
funny? The whole time
awful.
You were doing that, the whole time you were telling me about that, I was like, oh yeah, he's kind of like the season villain. Like I don't even like
right. Like
really like connect. Right. I don't like hate it. I think he's that actor's awesome. But to me, it's more like fuck yeah, this is Star Wars, dude. Like let's go do some
Yeah,
cool
no, right.
Star
I just
Wars
think
shit.
I always think of like top-notch villains, and like this villain blows. I actually bought Werner Herzog as the villain more than this guy, which is weird. But anyway, everything else about it is pretty excellent. So it's just intriguing because it's there's this one episode where it feels like it could have been something out of the Criterion Collection, where like it's filmed like Seven Samurai and like whatever. Like that's a little too.
So you're caught up with me
clap.
now. Did you go to the episode past that?
No,
So we're caught
not
up.
past it. Yeah, yeah. So, well, not the spoilers though. We're not the finale.
Yeah. So, but I think we both have 3 episodes left. We
Right.
should use the Disney Watch Party app.
We should definitely, because we could absolutely. And which, by the way, that's another thing that's happening. Is everyone is getting really good at this. Sling's got a great watch party app. Disney's got a great watch party. Amazon's
Disney's was good. It had to sync up. We watched Home Alone. Three households got together and watched Home Alone last night, and I think it only had to sync up like once or 2 or 3 times. Actually,
Okay.
it was pretty, but it worked, and it got us all there. And then we just created a Facebook group chat on our phone so we could just talk and like shit on each other. Like every time, like when the guys come and they knock over the statue, I filmed it and I was like Chris driving, and then like everyone kept calling me Uncle Frank, and I was like, God damn, like,
Uncle
you
Frank's
little jerk.
Uncle Frank is the worst. I forgot how much he makes his
He's so
skin
good.
from.
He's so good. They're in the airplane. He's like, "This is real crystal, honey. Put it in the bag." Put it. She's like, "No." He's like, "Just do it."
He's the worst.
There's
He's
no
the
good
worst.
Uncle Franks. Uncle Frank and
You
Hellraiser
know, he's
are
the
good.
worst. He's the worst, man. Like the moment when everyone realizes what they've done, everyone's like absorbing the blow, and he's just like, "That's horrible. This is horrible." I'm shut up. Like you're never serious, and the one moment when everyone just needs it to be soft pedal, that's when you gotta like, man, he's a psychic vampire. Never mind.
Dude, watching it, I was watching it this time, and I was like, man, you know how fun it would be to like get to like, I'm not an actor by any stretch, like I've never done anything, but like I was just watching, I was like, how fun would it be to like go on set and just be Uncle Frank? Like you just have to be a shithead to like everyone. Like that'd be so fun.
You got to be a method actor for that. You got to be like, I'm method. I'm doing.
I know, I
method
keep
right
apologizing. But look what you did, you little jerk. I'm sorry. You're not really a jerk. I think I actually be a pretty good Uncle Frank. I think I could do it.
All right. So Uncle Frank is a good segue to horror. So back to our top
Jesus
5.
wept.
Jesus wept. Our top 5 here. I can kick off because it was a weird year for horror. I'm not gonna lie, but I found some stuff. So let me just, because I teased it, let me start with the movie that I just shouldn't love, but I do.
I wonder which one you're going with.
So this movie is called Butchers. So Butchers is a complete remake of Wrong Turn. Like it is a total Wrong Turn.
Really?
Yeah, it is absolutely rip off of Wrong Turn. Like it's not trying to hide it. It's really blatant. But there's something also really, really kind of original about it. I love the main character, the main villain, basically. I really, really liked the main villain because he's got like this weird charisma, which is really become kind of cool. And the twist they gave it to not make them like mutant cannibals, like what they did here, I don't want to spoil, but it was really, really well done. I think the thing is that I just don't like movies that are this derivative very often. I mean, this is just Wrong Turn. but
Which we're getting a new one of.
Right, totally right. But what's cool about it is to me, it's like one of those things that until you say it out loud, you don't realize it. So like, you don't really realize till you say it out loud that like witches have been underserved in horror, right? When you think about monsters like vampires, werewolves, zombies, they all have like huge chunks of real estate, and witches have like less than 10 great movies, right? Over time, right? So they just didn't get as big a run as some of the other stuff. And then with this one, you don't realize that the wrong turn setting in a horror is just so good. Right? Like that kind of backwoods, not cabin in the woods, because cabin in the woods, that genre is different because you're stuck in one place, even though the place is atmospheric. You're basically stuck in a spot and the radius around a spot, right?
Right.
But like Wrong Turn is like you're roaming all over the place. The threat is the woods, and it's the being cut off from civilization, right? So like, and I just love that. And this movie does it really well, and you don't get it well done that often. So I don't know what to tell you. 2020.
I feel like your list is going to be my watch list, so I can finally undo the balance of Disney originals and, and actual horror movies, because that stuff's right up my alley.
Yeah, it's pretty good, man.
Did you see the trailer for the new Wrong Turn?
No, I haven't actually. I didn't even know it was out.
Curious what you think. It looks like, to be honest with you, it just kind of looks like a cheap horror movie, but that can sometimes be a fantastic thing. So
I'll check it out though, because like I said, I was just talking about how I like that. So
I'll see it. I still haven't seen any of the other Wrong Turns, so maybe before I get excited about that, I should sit down and check those out.
Well, Wrong Turn is like,
that's what I'm saying though. I'm glad you were gonna let me run off that bridge, because
no, Wrong Turn is like, it's like the Amityville franchise. I mean, there's like 18 films and only like 2.5 good ones, like, or whatever. Like Wrong Turn really only has 1 and 2 is a weird kind of like really its own weird thing. And then somewhere later, there's some good chunks of time in like 4 and maybe like whatever, but then it's over. Like, it's not. So you're not in it for the. I mean, you can't ride the franchise out on that one. It's not for some reason it's not charming enough. Like Phantasm, which has terrible sequels in it. I'm not gonna lie, more bad than good out of the whole count. But like, it's so friggin' charming that you just forgive it all the way through. You know what I mean? Like, but not Wrong Turn. What did you see that was good this year?
All right. Well, I don't think I have these in any particular list of like best of favorite. These are just 5. So I'm just gonna go down the list here, and
let's do it.
I'm gonna go with Scare Package.
Yeah,
I thought Scare Package was a shit ton of fun. And I also like the fact that it changed the way they did the last drive-in. So they kept doing reviews and introducing the films, introducing the segments. I thought that was really creative. I really liked it. It was also just a blast, because I haven't seen like a good anthology horror film in a long time. We also interviewed Aaron Kuntz on the podcast, and he was a blast to talk to. He
was.
It was just, and honestly, they're like, we were going to do an episode about this. We talked about it, about catching movies live, like with like particularly talking about like the last drive-in. Like for me, it feels different. Like I know we'll eventually probably watch the Christmas one, but like because I missed that one, I think I missed the Halloween one. I missed them live. I tried. No, I think I went back and I tried rewatching the very, very first one they aired on Shudder, where they did like, I think it was Castle Freak and something else I don't remember.
Oh, that's right.
So I tried watching that, but it just didn't feel the same. Like when we watched all the other stuff, like when we watched Heathers, when we watched, what was the one with the cops? It had that one guy who was in Tales from the Crypt, Dead Heat or something like that.
Yes, yeah. Oh, that was like really fun.
We watched a handful of those, and like it just feels different. And luckily, Scare Package was the one that we caught live, and like it just felt like an event. Like it felt like we were like getting to experience this really cool new horror film with a bunch of people at the same time, and on top of that, they were good, so that helps. Most of them are pretty good. There's a few in there that weren't our favorite, but overall, like it's a really good movie. Also, like anthologies are just so hard to come by.
Yep.
They're just so hard to come by.
Well, your pick and my pick have in common that they're unique. Like they're unique. They're their own thing. You don't get that. I think that was my favorite thing about Scare Package was I just hadn't felt anything like that out of horror in a long time.
Yeah.
Right. Like, which was really cool.
This movie has this might sound weird, but I think Scare Package has a really cool attitude towards it.
Yep. That's a perfect way to put it.
The movie knows what it is. It's going to have fun, but it's still going to give you...
You'd have a great conversation with this movie if you were at a bar and it sat next to you.
That's how I met Alex. We were talking about scary stories to tell in the dark, so it leads to a great engagement. So maybe me and Scare Package got a thing.
Scare Package could change your life.
Who knows? Yeah, go to the bar when you get your shot, and then get your vaccine, and then talk about Scare Package. Be responsible, people. All right, so that's one of my first pick of the year.
So number 4 on my list is The Dark and the Wicked. This is a really weird pick for me. This is a weird pick for me too. It's by Brian Bertino, who's the director of the original The Strangers, and a couple other things that are. I mean, he's got chops, but this movie is supernatural. It's paranormal, and one of the things that I don't want to spoil it because I think this is a big part of the impact of this. But one of the things I really like about this movie is it's one of those movies where the opening is so good. Right. So, and I don't know why I love this like subgenre of horror movies, but like there's a subgenre of horror movies where the opening is so strong. So like original Halloween, right? Like that opening just becomes legendary and you talk about it and you're like, so it's just not that it's necessarily better than anything that comes after it. It's just so damn good, right? Or like Jason Lives, Friday the 13th Part 6, where the opening is just so notably really great, right? So like I love when a movie can start really, really strong like that. I don't feel like a lot of movies do that with extended sequences. It's easy to do like a really short one and like a gotcha and then move into, like whatever. But to pull it off over a long stretch, like because of the opening sequence, I think is like 12, 15 minutes, have it all be amazing, right? Then you just know you're in for a ride, which was one of the things I really like about it. And then the other thing I really like about it is that then it kind of becomes The Shining, which I wouldn't have expected from that director, but because The Strangers felt really sparse and really direct, like really brutal, right? Like it felt like like watching someone try to play around with their car broken down on the side of the road, and then this guy just walks up and like kicks it and starts. Like The Strangers was just like, here's a little backstory, here's like whatever. Now we're gonna terrify the shit out of you for 60 minutes. We're out, like and that the to have this with a movie that has like some lore to it and a lot of atmosphere to it and like kind of like complexity like The Shining would have. Like I just didn't expect that, and I found it really, really, really well done, right? And the ending is pretty cool too. So I really like this. I like this one, and I like that it took me by surprise.
A lot of surprises this year. In fact,
yes.
My next pick. I mean, how could we not have this on the list? I mean, coming out of nowhere and just taking, at least Twitter by the balls for a little while. Everyone was talking about it. I'm gonna go with the Host.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be on there. There's no way. Yeah. There's no way you do a best of 2020 and Host is not on there. It's that good. It's that good. It knows how good it is that it was like 50 minutes. We're in. Yep. We're out. There's YouTube videos longer than me. There's TED Talks longer than me. I ain't about that life. I'm gonna get in, I'm gonna scare the shit out of you, and I'm gonna get out. That's what Host did.
I
It was
hate
like,
about that life is my favorite.
yeah, I took a drag with cigarettes, like, fuck this COVID shit. Halloween Kills is gonna get postponed. Quiet Place 2 is gonna get postponed. Conjuring.
Well, so we talked about Host already, but I do have one new little thing to contribute that I find fascinating. So because of Hello Weekly's social media and the fact that we're active on it, you see a lot of stuff that's themed like that. And I noticed that there were a lot of people who were, talking about sort of like Easter eggs or like implications of what happened to this character or what did it mean that this appeared on the screen or whatever. And I get the distinct impression that like 95% of that was not intended by the makers of this movie at all, right? Like the movie was way too stripped down and way too fast and way too whatever. But the horror fans start creating lore out of it, like seeing patterns where, like they're not necessarily, and I'm not saying that their interpretations are just as valid as anyone else's. That's the point, right? But like what I found interesting was that horror fans can do that to anything, even if you just put together something like on the cheap as a really quick, like whatever, there's going to be some stuff that you can pull out of it where you're like, what about this? What about this? Maybe even like that would inspire the filmmaker for the sequel or like whatever, which I always find interesting that people can do that, like that. And that seems to be happening with this movie, which I find cool.
It seemed like one of those like dare movies. Like people are like, dude, this is like way too scary. Like this is gonna scare the shit out of you. Like what a Paranormal Activity would have been, or like like an Exorcist would have been during like a sleepover. Like this is gonna scare the shit out of you. Like that's the vibe it felt too. It's like, are you a chicken? Are you gonna be able to sit through this movie and not be scared? Because I could see myself in high school when that comes out, and it just like it scared me now. Like it's a very scary movie. But I could definitely see, like, if I was in high school or middle school, like that would have been like the most primo time to have something like that come and scare the shit out of you.
The vibe it most reminded me of was the vibe I got from what was happening with the American remake of The Ring.
Yeah,
like, it felt very like, you got to watch this. Have you seen like whatever? And then. Right? There's some movies that feel like they're reaching out of the screen a little bit to get you. Like Blair Witch Project
that's what I was going to say.
You can get lost, and now this is going to be in your head, right? So like Jaws had, you can end up in the water.
Well,
this is like whatever. And Host is like, you can end up in virtual meetings.
Exactly, because everyone was trying to do their quarantinis, talking to other people, and they're like, we'll have a little cocktail hour with our business, and then it's like, no. After Host, you're like, nah. So I was gonna get on there and start some foolishness. Right. Also, the kills were creative. The movie itself is a really good movie. The fact that I think they used like GoPros or something like that, and then they like made them look like webcam. If I remember correctly, I vaguely remember seeing some behind the scenes stuff. It just seems like it's so stripped down and so badass. And like they had a cool idea and they just ran with it, and like it worked. Like it was just lightning in a bottle. It just worked, and I actually think it's more in that category of like a Blair Witch, where like when it comes, it slams down and it grabs everyone's attention for a good while, and hopefully the next. I think they always talk about. We follow a bunch of them on Twitter, like the actresses and the writer, and they're always talking about like what they're doing next. Like I think they posted a photo of a Zoom meeting, of them with like Sam Raimi, if I remember correctly. So
I saw that.
With him producing and their creativity. That should be some pretty good shit.
Yeah, and I hope it goes well for them. Like I'm hearing, really some disturbingly bad reviews of Wonder Woman, which is sequel.
I've heard opposite.
That's interesting. I heard some really terrible reviews of it, but it's I don't care if the reviews are bad. I just care if they do good work and. Of course you'd want them to have it be another hit and get good reviews and all the things, but sometimes you can't have all the things. But as long as it's quality, like
79% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, that I don't know what to tell you. For some reason, I've only
Don't you
seen three
ruin
reviews.
Christmas, George?
I've only seen three. I've only heard three reviews for that movie, and they were all bad. I don't know why I got unlucky in my role. But anyway, so I think they're on to something good though. So for my next pick, I have Invisible Man.
That's a
So
joint one. That's a joint. That was going to be my next pick, so that lines up perfectly. So we'll tackle both of ours for this one.
You know, and honestly, I think it's probably the best horror movie of the year. I have one higher than it, but it just means that it's more my favorite. But Invisible Man is definitely the best larger budget mainstream horror movie of the year. But that's not much of a category this year. But I think it's probably also the best movie, just best horror movie in general. It was so stylish. It was so interesting. It should have been such a disastrous take. I remember when I heard vaguely what the plot was, being so disappointed because I'm such a big Claude Rains original Universal Invisible Man fan. And, you know, when you start hearing about what the plot of this Invisible Man was going to be, you knew it could be a lot of things, but it wasn't going to be Claude Rains, right? Like, it wasn't. So, and they just really just nailed it. And then the diner scene is so special, right? Like, it's just such an interesting. I saw a really cool take of this article that came out about how, you know, that scene demolishes the idea of safe spaces, which is an interesting way to look at, you know, what the meaning of that scene is, right? And then the fact that gaslighting, which is, you know, become like one of the largest cultural problems that, you know, countries have to deal with in the modern
word
era.
Of 2020.
Right. Like the fact that it had that as its central theme and did such a good job with it. I mean, it was the right movie, right time, right team, great talent, and really scary and unsettling parts. So, fucking great job. Yeah.
And he's doing Wolfman next with Ryan Gosling. I mean, load him up, dude. Give him all the Universal stuff.
Just got to be excited for that.
And I think Karen Kuzma is doing. Yes. I think she's doing Dracula.
Oh shit, that'll be amazing too, most likely.
Right? Yeah, and I don't have much to add on Invisible Man other than I think it's great. I was watching some behind the scenes of how they did. Oh god, what's the lead actress's name?
Elizabeth Moss.
Yeah, of how they like tossed her around the kitchen, and it's like literally just like I think some of the shots are her and some might be stunt double on like a wire, and a dude in a green suit, like just you know, they have a wire to help it look like he's, you know, supernatural strength like he has in the movie, but I mean it's just literally like dude's in a green suit. Dude, who's gonna
it blows my mind when you see an epic scene and then you see behind the scenes and you just see it's like people just standing around. Like, it just blows my... Like, there's a guy drinking a Dr. Pepper like 5 yards away.
Yeah, like I sent you the behind the scenes of the opening scene from Scream with Drew Barrymore. And just seeing those people like in their 90s, you know, dad shorts and high top white socks.
Yes.
You know, with lights. And then the fact that like Ghostface like kind of stabs and like kind of looks at the camera. You're like, what?
Yeah, yes.
Go ahead.
I just saw a thing with where someone had tweeted that they were showing that the 4K restoration of Dr. No, the James Bond movie that's on Amazon Prime, they cropped it or ratioed it weird or whatever. So like they were trying to get more image on the screen, but now you can see there's a boom mic in the famous, like when Ursula Andress comes out of the water in the white bikini and like legendary scene. Now there's like this boom mic just trailing around behind her. God. in the actual movie that Amazon is showing, and like it's when you see it, you're just like, oh yeah, there's other people there, and it's so weird because I only think of that scene as like a poster, like that's the most epic shot, right? And now you realize there were like 12 people there, like 3 of them were named Roy. Like it's just weird.
You know what I miss? Not to go too off on a tangent on our list here, but I miss the art of the behind the scenes. Remember DVDs would have those really cool, like, produced behind the scenes look where they interview the actors, the writers, the directors, the prop guys, and just like take you on set. Like whatever. Netflix needs to add those. Like they need to like bring those back. Like I would love to like make one of those for like a horror movie and just like shoot the behind, because I'd make such a can you imagine if I did a behind the scenes thing? How great, how
You
entertaining
know,
that'd be.
this topic makes me mad. So, Merry Christmas. So, because you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, nothing is more fun. That's part of why we're such big fans of the Bravo list, is because it felt like that. And then they think they're replacing it with things like Eli Roth's History of Horror, but that's not replacing it, because you're only talking to like the top most famous people. It's not like the kind of thing you're describing. The
It's
kind of
why we
thing you're
like.
describing is sometimes the most interesting thing, like we found out with Unearthed and Untold. A lot of the most interesting stories around the making of Pet Sematary come from people who were like on screen for 3 minutes or were producers behind the scenes. That amazing Never Sleep Again documentary about the Elm Street series, one of the reasons it's so amazing is because they don't just talk to Robert Englund and Wes Craven. They talk to other people.
Doesn't Garen know Jason Blum? Get him on the horn. Let me make one of those behind the scenes. Give me a camera. I'll interview those fuckers. Right? I got the credentials.
I totally agree with you.
All right, I'm gonna throw that out there. Okay, so we both had Invisible Man. Yes. So that leaves me with two left.
Yeah, I mean, here's my. So I've only got two. So the movie His House, which is the Netflix kind of ghost story, which again is it's weird. I don't usually worry about spoilers, but I feel like a lot of the movies I liked this year packed like a really good spoiler punch. Whatever. But one of the things I really like about His House is, when you think about movies, it felt like it was going to be a slow burn, right? It felt like it was going to be, and it got going pretty fast. It reminded me of George Romero, as much as as great as he was, you could tell he was getting a little more introspective as he got older. He was a little more, aware of maybe the message that he might want to be conveying. So he, some of his movies, they start really fast just for a second, but they can get pretty slow where they're doing more establishing than they did in the old ones, right? And that's what I kind of expected for this one. But just like Land of the Dead took me by surprise from Romero, because it gets started pretty quickly with some pretty cool stuff. This is like that. It feels like it's going to be a slow burn, but it starts out pretty interesting and pretty shocking. And then it gets really kind of cool about the idea of trauma and what. So one of the things was it felt like the horror movie I watched this year that was relevant to 2020 and pandemic stuff, but not on the nose. Right?
Gotcha.
So and that's what I really liked about it, was because a lot of people made stuff that was really on the nose, or they were trying to do stuff that was on the nose, and a lot of it didn't work. Some of it did. Some things that you wouldn't think were relevant at all of a sudden become relevant, like old George Carlin bits, are all of a sudden super relevant again because of how foolish your people are being with 2020. But this one was relevant, but not too on the nose, right? So I just thought it was really good and interesting, and it's weird because I didn't see a lot of original horror that impressed me from Netflix, but this was great.
If I had to guess, I feel like that would be the one that pulls through, because even Alex and I saw the trailer of that one, and she was like, "Ooh, that one looks good." And she never says that about horror movies. She never says that about horror movies at all. So I was like, man, mental check. We'll get around that one. All
cool.
Right.
What's your next?
So my next two are semi-cheats. Not really. The last one's really not, but this one sort of is. But I'm going to pick an episode of it, so it's kind of not, if you follow that logic. I really liked Blind Manor a lot. And
me too.
I'm going to go with an episode of Blind Manor here. That way it's at least some kind of an hour-long ordeal, and I'm not really pulling wool over everyone's eyes. I want to go with episode 8, and I actually like the title of this. I didn't know the title of this episode before we started watching it, but it's called The Romance of Certain Old Clothes. and that's like that just sounds cool as fuck. Like that sounds like I feel like I'm cultured now that I.
Those are all phrases from Turn of the Screw, the Henry James story.
Oh, and that's what it's.
And Henry James, like he might be one of the 5 greatest American writers who ever lived. So there's going to be a lot of good chapter titles in Bly Manor.
And I actually like this one, and it's directed by Axel Carolyn, and I googled it to make sure I pronounced that right. And she also did a short in Tales of Halloween, which we interviewed Andrew Cash for, and I don't remember it off the top of my head because there's like 20. There's a lot of goes there. Yes. But the second she directed was called Grim Grinning Ghost, and as someone with Haunted Mansion coasters on his desk there, I think I'm predisposed to enjoying the likings of Axel Caroline. But to be honest with you, when that episode started, Alex and I both kind of groaned because we were like, "Oh, it's the episode where they go back." It's like it was inevitable that they were gonna take this old mansion to when that shit was sort of new and all that other jazz. And we kind of rolled our eyes at it. We were like, you know what? It's second to last episode. Let's just take it in. And then we'll be to the finale, and then we'll have this whole series, under our belt, and it'll make for the best Halloween that we could possibly have because we really, I think we had our quarantine group together and we watched. What did we watch? Let Me In.
Let Me In.
Let Me In, and then we went to the haunted hayride where they had it, nice and distance, and like that was it. And then Blind Manor. So like those were the 3 things.
Yep.
That we had. And we were kind of like, okay, so let's see what this episode is. And it ended up being our favorite episode. Like, this episode is poetry in motion. Like, this episode is like, it has that rhyme to it. And it's got that rhythm to it. And it's just amazing. And, it's really funny that, like, when it started, you're like, oh, I'm not going to like this. And then it just knocks the socks off you by the end of it. When they finally resolve that episode's plot line, and the next thing you know, like you kind of just snap out of it and you forgot that you were just enthralled for like 15 minutes.
Totally.
She also wrote some episodes of The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which like you and me fucking love. So like,
yeah, there's something really, really magical in Bly Manor. I wouldn't be surprised if like 20 years from now this becomes a thing, like something like, I don't know how to explain, like whatever, but there's something that living inside this series that is really unusual and cool. And it's really interesting because there's a lot of it that annoyed me, like more than Haunting of Hill House. I felt like there were more times where I was like groaning a little or annoyed. And then all of a sudden, just when I was like, maybe this isn't great, like something would happen, and it was like I was in that universe. I don't know. It was able to build a convincing like alternate place that you just never get that feeling, and that show had it, right? Like it's just something special in that show.
There was an Iron Maiden song that's based off an old poem that you were telling me about, the
Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Yeah, Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
And I haven't listened to that song or read it, but I've always been enthralled with the idea of it, of you structuring something, you structuring this visual or this audio thing to a rhythm. That's not music, right? Like to me that's always going to be cool. And this felt like that. Like it had that rhythm, that repetition. But like it kept getting darker the more it went on, and darker the more it went on, and like
that is the fucking perfect way to put what was happening there. You're right; it was almost musical. That's really interesting that you said it that way.
Yeah, and it just, I mean, to me, that's the standout episode of the entire, season.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, I think I think I had other episodes that were probably. I don't know if that was my favorite, but like you could tell, first of all, like you said, that it was necessary. It was definitely going to happen. Right?
Yeah.
So like, it's like when you're watching the Olympics and they got to do like the triple half twist, like whatever, like, the whole rest of the thing is just bullshit. Like
Right.
everyone's pretending they're judging what they're doing when they're like going in like whatever, but no one really cares. All you really care about is like that one jump, right? Like, and you that episode was that jump, and a lot of shows stumble there,
Yeah.
right? And they nailed it. Like what? So that's I mean that was really well done.
No. It was a killer episode. So, and honestly, out of all the horror that I eventually did watch this year, that was one of the most enjoyable hours. so, so I had to put it on there. I didn't want to cop out and be like the whole season. No, that was my episode. I'm gonna. I ain't afraid to say it. That was a good one.
No, that's a. I mean, it's a great call. You know, there's something I read once that said like there are certain kind of artists where they stick with you like so for the next couple days it's like a cologne like got in your clothes like it's like
Yeah.
you just it's just kind of hovering around and pops in your head and like whatever like Bly Manor and Invisible Man were probably the only two horror properties mainstream wise to me that lingered like
What's
in
funny
an
is
interesting way.
I couldn't recite the words for you, or maybe the rhythm 100%, but I can still kind of like feel it like resonating like in my chest. When I think about it, I can almost feel like the rhythms that da 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 like how just like how like the progression felt, and like I just think that's like so unique that you can like leave that print, you know.
Yeah,
all that time.
totally agree. And interestingly, I don't think Haunting of Hill House, which is probably a better executed series overall, I don't think it had that.
It did, and it didn't.
right. Which is really interesting. That you know, like I don't even know which I would prefer because the other one was more sure-footed and polished and definitely scarier, but Bly Manor was like it more magical, like dark magic. Right?
Yeah, it had its own you know flavors to it that didn't suck. that were great.
It didn't suck. Speaking of not sucking, my pick for my number one pick for the year is the movie She Dies Tomorrow, which might be a little controversial for like real straight narrow horror fans because this is definitely horror, but also very much black comedy. So it's got a lot of Heathers in its DNA.
Cool.
Alongside of, you know, having sort of like the pacing of like a slasher at points, like The Changeling in some respects at points. Like it has a weird pacing to it. But anyway, the idea of this movie is just so genius. And it's one of those that's like inevitable. It's one of those ideas where when whoever wrote this, when it hit them, they were like, "I have to write a movie," right? Like if that, like you can't not write this once you have this idea, right? But like the idea is, there's this woman who has because it feels like a Twilight Zone episode. There's a woman who has a premonition, just out of nowhere, no explanation, but just this strong premonition that for her, there is no tomorrow. She's gonna die tomorrow. So like she's out of tomorrows. So she just has this, you know, feeling, this hunch, and she can't shake it, right? So that's fine. But what happens is it turns out that her fear is contagious. She starts infecting other people with the to be absolutely convinced that they're out of tomorrows, that they're gonna die tomorrow. And the fact that it spreads, right, like a contagion is so interesting and so cool. And it leads to such a, like, this movie's got great visual flair. It's laugh out loud funny at parts, right? So like, and then the acting is incredible. The actress who was in this, or who directed it, sorry, who has been in other horror movies like You're Next, like horror fans would recognize her, but like, I don't remember her doing other movies. This might be her debut. I should have looked it up, but it feels like a young talent. Like it feels like someone with something to say, right?
When you showed me the trailer and I saw it was produced by like Neon, like the little, I think that's what the company's called. I was like, oh, this is about to be artsy as shit.
Right.
But like a good artsy, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like where you're like,
totally.
it's gonna have some edge to it. It's gonna be fun. Like
Yep.
that's how I feel
But
whenever I see that.
the fact that we live in what's, like a once in a century frightening year, the fact that this is our wrap up episode for the year, and the fact that we live in the scariest year of my lifetime, overall, like there's scarier days and scarier moments. Like 9/11 was scarier than this year, but to go on and on and on, right? Like whatever.
Right.
The fact that there was a movie that had something new to say about fear, but not this.
Yeah,
right? Not, it wasn't about this, right? It was about its own thing, but it had something new to say about fear, and it's interesting laterally if you think about like the year that it came out, the year you live in, but it's also interesting like going up and down where you're like headed to a more interesting idea because it was saying its own thing. To be able to say something new about fear in this year is quite the feat. Right. So I'm going to give it the gold medal for that.
That's cool. All right. So my last one is the half cheat, not really cheat, not considering a cheat. Don't know why I brought this up. I'm going with a murder documentary just to round it out. Fucking murder me, dude. And
I'm all for this.
And honestly, who doesn't love a murder documentary? I mean, anytime a good one comes out, like it starts trending and everyone's talking about it.
Dude, you remember how obsessed I got with The Staircase? Like how much I talked about it and how much I wanted people to see it. Like, it was definitely the scariest movie of the year that it came out that I saw. Right, so like, I'm totally with you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with American Murder, The Family Next Door, because like we watched the Ripper one that just came out yesterday, and it's really good. The Ripper one, the opening credits to that one is so unique and so well done. Like, even if you don't watch, like, the premise of, like, those murders doesn't interest you, or, like, you already know about it or whatever, like, watch that intro. Like, it is a beautiful intro. Like, it's really good.
Interesting.
And, like, everyone, there's been a handful of others, like, you know what other documentary we watched that I could have? No, that's not a movie, though, so I'm not going to do it. I was going to say the NXIVM HBO documentary.
Oh, yeah.
About that weird sex cult. That was a good one. That guy's an asshole. He actually just got sentenced, like, 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so fuck that guy. But Family Next Door was, like, the first one that, like, you always feel bad for the people, like, because it's a murder, but, like, usually a lot of these things are about murders that happened, a long time ago, and, you really have no, like, connection to it other than knowing that, like, a human life was lost, and, like, that's terrible, and, like, interview things. This one made me feel bad, like, because this dude just, like, snaps and kills his wife and 2 kids. And they show a bunch of, like, video of them and, like, their marriage, and, like, their marriage seemed, like, kind of rocky from the fucking start. But then the dude just, like, completely goes off the deep end, and like, he kills it. So I mean, everyone knows they're fucking dead. It's called American Murder. Actually, they call it Family Annihilators. Family Annihilation.
Wow.
Family Annihilators, which to me is the dopest fucking name for, like, a black metal band.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't even know that was a phrase. Wow.
Yeah, that's, like, the most brutal, like,
that's rough
phrase. I know. Family Annihilators, like opening up for Cannibal Corpse. But it makes you feel bad. The part that that really got me, though, is they have the police body cam footage of when they're all missing, and he comes home and he's, like, talking to his neighbors and the cops, and, like, the dude, like, just fucking, like, murdered, like, his fucking family, and, like, watching him, like, pull out his phone and be like, I don't know where she's at, she's not answering, like, and then you progress, and then, like, they show it again, like, and from the start that he killed his wife, so it's already weird, but then, like, when they double down and they're like, here, now and they show it again, like, you're just watching a person with, like, the murders he just committed at the front of his mind, and him trying to, like, act cool in front of, like, cops and his neighbors. It's like, I mean, no movie can, like, replicate it as real as that. Like, they can make you believe it, but they can't replicate it to that. No, and it's just and it's absolutely fucking just horrifying.
Yep, I'm with you, man. I count documentaries as they're. The thing is, the thing that always baffled me about not counting them is it's sort of like an insult to them, like they're not an art form, but they're definitely an art form. like a good documentary, like you can tell the same story, but like in so many different ways, right? Like,
Well,
and go ahead.
They use the police body cam from like when he goes there, and then like this police guy should probably get like a Academy Award for cinematography just from having a fucking thing on his chest, because there's this shot. So the guy they're all over there. It's him, the cop, the guy who killed his family, and like his neighbor, and I think maybe a couple other people like on their phones trying to find out where the wife went. Maybe she went crazy, took the kids, and went off somewhere. But really they're dead. I think he dumped the girls in like a gravel pit or something like that. It's like really fucking brutal, dude. And I think they're at the neighbor's house. The guy leaves, right? And the camera is just like, it's sort of like at a lower angle because it's down on this guy's, shirt, kind of pointing up at him. It's not a pretty angle. So the guy who murders leaves, and the neighbor just goes like this. He goes, but it feels like a beat in like a murder, like like a David Fincher, like like some kind of like murder mystery film where like that's like the detective's first.
Yeah, someone would be across the room doing that to Robert Downey Jr., and then he would be turning around going, we got to talk to this guy.
Yeah,
he just gave me one of the.
They go and they talk to him, and he's like, he never acts like that. And it's just like, I mean, and I think it's not like it's a movie. I think it's an hour and 20 minutes, so it's relatively short. But man, that hour and 20 minutes really packs up. I mean, like there's that HBO Nexium documentary, but that's like a mini series of like, 8 episodes. There's a lot of shit like that that really drag. The Ripper one's like 6 episodes or something like that. This 120 minutes, boom, 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 and then you're done. And it just beats you up like emotionally with like how brutal it was. So
that's interesting. That's really interesting. That's interesting that because you're giving me like a Gone Girl vibe, which I always fought for Gone Girl as a sort of horror movie, in its own right. But that genre is an interesting genre. So because it's funny because there's a lot of people who have some like legendary scares, and in horror, people never talk about these movies. But there was a whole subset of movies like Fatal Attraction, Sleeping with the Enemy, Hand That Rocks the Cradle, Pacific Heights, that were sort of horror, sort of not, right? But they all give you like that kind of similar vibe to what you're describing, even though those are fictional and this is not. But like that's a genre of
well, I mean,
film.
like Scare Package had monsters. Invisible Man had a crazy tech genius. I mean, and this one, like you're looking at like a murderer. Like this guy really fucking did it. And like when you go into watching it, like you just can't shake that off, and it leaves you unsettled. It's hard to you can't compare that kind of a scare or feeling to a horror movie, because a horror movie we know we're getting it. We know what we're getting into. Like we're gonna go see a horror movie. We're gonna see some monsters. We're gonna see some jump scares. The level of unsettled this gives you is just like it's like in your gut. It's just it's just weird.
I'm all for it. Yeah, beautiful. Well, I mean, it's a weird year. It's a weird ending, but like that's how it was always going to be with this year, I guess.
So I had
a
thing I wanted to do here. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
no.
I'm real excited for this. So because a lot of the movies that came out this year got pushed back to next year, and I don't know how many that were supposed to come out next year are going to get pushed back even further. I'm guessing they're probably just going to try to. I'm guessing it's probably be a cramped schedule next year if everything goes well and people get vaccinated and we get rid of this COVID thing. So I wanted to guess what my personal. That way we can look back at this. Because I love doing this kind of shit at the end of the year, even though I've never looked back. I always say I will. Maybe this will be the year I actually do it.
You do always say you will.
I do always say that, and then I never go back. But I'm going to do it again because eventually I will do it, and I'll be glad that we did it. So I want to go through and guess what I think my favorite film will be next year, and then I'm going to guess what I think yours is. So I have a list in front of me, and there's quite a few movies coming up that I think look particularly interesting, and some I didn't even know about. So, like, there's an Escape Room 2 that was supposed to come out in January 2021, which there was an argument about the January release date, and some people were saying like, no, it's not a place where they put bad movies, and then they cite like 1 or 2 good movies that came out in January, but like it's a bad year. If your movie comes out in January, you know what's going on. All right, cut the shit. Morbius, which is like a vampire set in the Spider-Man world. They're doing another Paranormal Activity. Now this one I didn't know. Dark Harvest. Uh, it's made by the guy who did David Slade. He did Hard Candy and 30 Days and Nights, and it
Oh
looks
yeah.
dope. It looks crazy.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Halloween Kills.
Yep.
Antebellum came out. I thought.
It did.
Saw or Spiral.
Yep.
From the Book of Saw. That one's got Chris Rock. And then A Quiet Place 2, which I'm just gonna make a jump here. Oh, Edgar Wright has a horror movie coming out called The Last Night in Soho, which I haven't seen the trailer for. I'm kind of
I heard about that too. Yeah.
So here's my guess.
Yes.
I have a feeling that my favorite movie of next year will probably be. I might actually go with this Dark Harvest movie because it looks super Halloweeny and like pumpkiny, just from the image that I'm on Screen Rants right now. Here, I can actually send you.
Yeah, I pulled it up. I'm looking at what you're talking about.
Okay, so that looks like a movie that Nick.
Well, that's because it's the adaptation of a novel, so that's why it looks like that, and it is very Halloween-y. So yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with that one, and then if I had to guess what movie you're gonna like. Have they announced a Brahms Boy 3?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the Brahms franchise.
So part of me thinks that like you would dig. There's not a part of me that makes me think you would pick an Edgar Wright film as your favorite movie. I think you would like it, but I'm not gonna go with Last Night in Soho.
Right.
Halloween remake grew on you a lot more than it grew on me.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if Halloween Ends might be it, because you also have a connection with the Halloween movies. Like when you were younger, you saw it on TV.
Yeah.
But it's kind of an obvious pick.
Yeah.
And you're not an obvious guy. So I'm really thinking about this.
Are we counting Candyman?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Because Candyman's definitely going to come out. And then I think isn't Scream coming out next year, or maybe it's the year after that. And then also The Conjuring. So
yes.
And I thought about Candyman. I thought you would go with Candyman.
Yeah.
I have a feeling.
Yeah. Yes.
I have a feeling that it'll probably be. Oh well, Don't Breathe 2 comes out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with my gut here.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with my gut, and it's gonna surprise you. And I think it's gonna. This is a pure guess because I haven't seen it. I don't know if there's even a trailer for this movie. I'm gonna go with The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It.
Conjuring, Devil Made Me Do It.
Because and that's why I think it is, because I knew you were going to say that, and now all I have to do is wait and pray it's a great movie, and then I'm right. So,
yeah, that's true. You're totally right, and it's got a better chance than the ones I'm excited about, probably, with the exception of Candyman. I mean, to be honest with you, Candyman is one of my absolute favorite horror movies of all time, so I can't not be. I don't. It's hard to imagine being more excited. It just feels like that news has been around for so long. It feels weird to be excited about it, right?
And that puppet trailer that they released, where like it shows how the Candyman legend became, like that. Remember that? It was like the cardboard cutouts. Like that was fucking amazing.
Yeah, it was totally amazing. And I'm always up for new installments in Halloween because I do love that series, and I do have a connection to it. But I think without a doubt, Candyman is the thing I'm most excited about. Now, for you, I think Dark Harvest is probably going to be your favorite movie of the year out of the ones that we're talking about. I think the dark horse here is. You might actually get super surprised by Don't Breathe 2 because you loved that. Don't Breathe. You love that universe, right? And so Don't Breathe 2 to me, but the weird thing is that movie has the highest bar in terms of figuring out how to make a sequel work. I was joking about that when I left the theater, right? Like, how are they going to get a sequel? Like, it seems impossible to take that story from where they left it without like a huge cheat, right?
Uh-huh.
But anyway, if they solve that problem, I think that movie will be really, really
Interesting.
exciting
That'll be fun
for you because you love that thing. And I have a hunch here. I'm gonna put it here on record now since we're wrapping it up. I have a hunch that you're not a big Saw fan, but you might really like Spiral. I have a feeling Spiral might take you by surprise too.
I was looking at it. I was looking at that. I was just watching a Chris Rock interview like the other day.
Because you're not. I mean, not you, as far as I know, Saw's not even in your top like 20 horror franchises of all time. But I have a feeling about this movie. I don't know what it is, but I think you might end up really, really liking it.
I'm excited to find out.
It's the same thing. Like you wouldn't have guessed that you would have liked the Child's Play remake.
No, but I fucking love that one. Yeah.
Right. Exactly right. So same thing. So let's see if these come true. It'll be interesting.
That's perfect. Easy. All right. Well, let us know what movies, the listeners, you guys, let us know what you're looking forward to in 2021. Let us know in an iTunes review. That'd be great. We had a lot of STLs. I forget what other challenges I had, but that didn't work. Everyone was like, "No." But I think that's probably something that's more exciting to type out and like throw out into the world of like, I'm looking forward to this. 5 stars.
I think that's true.
So okay, let us know what you're looking forward to. This is the last one for the year. We're just gonna right.
Hang in there, everyone. We'll see you on the other side.
And then we're kicking back to Not Bravo. So we're gonna finish all those. We're at the halfway point. So we were like, let's take the rest of the year off.
Yep.
Iron out the list because we were shaking out that list right before we record. Because it is cutting loose. Like it's hard, dude. That list is hard to make because something might come out like over Christmas that we put on the list.
I know you see. I mean, a lot of good stuff happens.
Like we had Invisible Man on that list.
That's
that
right.
Came out this year. So if anything comes out, there was like some weird cartoon movie that's supposed to come out in like a week or so.
Yeah, there's a couple of those.
The Something Man or something like that. It caught my eye. So maybe that's something. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out soon enough. All right. Well, until next time, stay scary, watch a bunch of horror movies, and we'll talk to you guys 2021.